Welcome to today's Iris session, brought to you by BrightRock, provider of the first ever life insurance that changes as your life changes. I'm David O'Sullivan, and today we're here to talk about ways to bring in extra cash. It's no secret that South African households are stretched to the limit, thanks to the rising cost of almost everything. And the odds that your income is going to keep up with this are also slim, which means times are about to get even tougher. But before you reach out for that credit card, there's no reason this winter has to be your winter of discontent. There are many ways to stay financially afloat, and today we'll be unpacking ways to bring in extra cash for your household. Now, joining me in the studio, Benita Levin, the news editor for Eyewitness News, but also a well-known life coach who has experience in advising people who are coping with change in their lives. And joining her is Makgotso Nkwanyana, Client Relations Manager at SABC2. She's also, though, a successful independent distributor of Herbalife products. So welcome to both of you. And Benita, I'll turn to you first because I know how hectic your job can be at Eyewitness News. Now, being a life coach, I'm sure that's not for you to bring in the extra income, but you're advising people on doing such a thing. How do you balance being the life coach and being the news editor of an institution like Eyewitness News?
Well, it's such a good point, David, because in becoming a life coach, I found that I had to balance my life so that I could actually qualify and do the training and do the coaching and do the learning and get the exams done and do so much extra work in my extra time over and above a newsroom that operates 24/7.
Yes.
That juggling as a mom and as a wife and as a news editor and as a life coach became part of my own journey. And then it became so much easier for me when I did meet with clients to talk about the exact same problem. And more than anything today in 2016, we're finding more and more people, men and women, battling to get all aspects of their life into a happy and successful place. And that's pretty much what the focus is all about.
I'm sure you've got some great insights, some good stories to share with us. Makgotso, for you, if somebody says, what do you do for a living? What are you? Are you a client relations manager or a distributor of Herbalife? Or could you wear both hats at the same time?
I would say I would wear both hats at the same time, but my main job is a client relations manager, which is my 8 to 4 work, Monday to Friday. And Herbalife I do mostly on weekends and after hours. So when I get home at about 7 o'clock, that's when I start with my part-time business, and that's when I see my clients, and on weekends that's when I see most of my customers.
And what made you go into doing the Herbalife? Was it financial considerations? Was there a passion, a drive to do this kind of work?
I've always liked nutrition. I've always lived a healthy lifestyle. So when I saw Herbalife, I actually wanted to help my husband lose the weight because he was 13 kilograms heavier than he is now. And I used to tease him and say that, you know what, I'll never be treated by a doctor that looks like you. Yes. And a lot of people started seeing results and they were asking, what are you guys using? Then we'll say Herbalife. So the lady that I used to get stuff from said to me, Makgotso, why don't you do it as a business? Then I thought, oh yeah, let me give it a try. And it's been going very well.
But I'd imagine for people who want to supplement their income, if they've got a full-time job, it is hard for them to understand that there's something you can do outside of that job. Now, you've been able to do it. Are you juggling other balls? There's Benita who's juggling motherhood and wife and all the other things as well. Are those issues for you as well to try and run a household?
Yeah, I've got an 8-year-old and I'm also a wife. So running around school run and doing all sorts of things, yeah.
Was it a big leap for you to say, well, I've got my full-time job, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I've got a household to run, all those traditional roles that we expect women to play, justifiably or sometimes unjustifiably, and then to say, well, I can actually do another business as well. How much of a leap was that for you in your workspace?
I've actually taken a very big leap because my full-time work was also taking a bit of strain. I mean, being a mother and having to drive all the way from Mpumalanga to go fetch your daughter. So I had to make some sacrifices and put my daughter on transport. And she understands that mommy has to work, mommy has to make some extra income just for her to have a great life, extramural activities. So yeah, that's how I got into it. Yeah.
Benita, I would imagine though, when you're dealing with clients and advising people, that one of the biggest things is that leap of faith, that people, if they want to go and explore new environments, getting out of your comfort zone and actively going to do it is a big issue, to persuade people to go out and break the comfort zone.
And that's actually the point where I meet most clients. It's at the point of, am I going to take that risk? Am I ready to lose what I've got in terms of the comfort that might be quite stagnant and unsatisfying, but at least it's there. And let's be honest, in these economic times, a salary is a nice thing to have. To take that risk, to go and try something brand new that may or may not work, is a very difficult thing to do. And so it's a time of assessing what your skills are, what value you can bring to your new job, and whether you as a family unit with your partner, are they going to be supportive, and are you going to take this risk together? So that if it doesn't work, is there a plan B? But let's actually do everything that we can to make it work. And part of that is saying you have to be able to call on people for help. And if you're lucky to have a supportive partner, then that's really half the battle, because somebody is watching your child while you are with Herbalife. And in my case, when I'm coaching people perhaps on a Sunday morning at a women's breakfast, then somebody is watching my children, and I would prefer it to be my husband and not somebody that I'm employing to look after my children. Right. And so the bigger the support structure you have, and the more you as a unit go into this new journey where we're trying to make extra so that things can be better for our children's future, the more chance of success.
Okay, two things I'm getting from this then. If you're looking at supplementing your income, you've got a full-time job, it's not earning enough, you want to make some more. What do I do? The first thing you've got to make sure is you've got good support structures. Before you even start casting your eye and saying, what can I do? If you don't have the support structures, you can't actually make that plunge. Is that right? Yeah. Then the next thing would be, what is my skill set? Can I actually do this? So there's a bit of thought that has to go into, what are the likely things that I am capable of doing?
So what's quite interesting with that, David, is I was at a corporate just a week ago talking to people not only about their current job, which in all cases in this particular session, everybody there was involved in finance, and it was almost office hours with a lunch hour and very staid, as they described it. And when we spoke to each person about their passions when they were younger, what they really wanted to do, that's when we started getting into not only a skill set, but something you've always wanted to do, that book you've always wanted to write. Yeah. You know what it's like to write a book. I mean, yes. That's real passion. You need to get that out. And when you start talking to people about what they always wanted to do or what they yearned for when they were younger, you can start opening a conversation about not the 9-to-5 job that gets those bills paid, but something that you really, really have always dreamt about doing and doing properly. And when someone gets into that space, that's when you can see some really exciting changes happening.
Now for you, Makgotso, with Herbalife, with going and selling nutritional products, is that something you felt you had a knack for doing? You could go and do that? Did you understand that it's part of your personality?
Yeah, I actually did. When I joined, I obviously went on a course, and there are trainings that we do, so that sort of actually helps you to grow into your business. Yeah, so...
but was there that passion that Benita's talking about? Was there something burning inside you? Say, I'm fine as the client services manager. Actually, I've got a yearning to go out and be this entrepreneur. Was there that fire in your belly?
Yes, there was. Like Benita has said, that, you know, you look back when you were a child, what were the things that you really liked doing? I've always watched my mom going on all these diets, and I'll join her on the diets. And I thought, you know what, I can actually help people out there. Let me just do it.
Did you think your decision to embark on this secondary career was born out of your desire to help people more than it was born out of a desire to earn extra money?
It was a bit of both. A little extra money is nice to have, because in this day and age, you can't really depend on a salary alone. Yes.
But I suppose the other thing that Benita was talking about, where you got the fire in your belly, what I also, I want to caution people, you can't just say, well, you know what, I'm going to give up my job, I'm going to go and do something. You had to go on a course. You had to actually go and apply your mind. There was an investment, an intellectual investment that had to take place. You couldn't just say, you know what, I'm going to go and try and sell things and go out. You'll crash and burn. You need to know the process, don't you?
Yes, absolutely.
How complicated is that?
It's not very complicated, because all you have to give up is your weekends. You have to understand that your weekends are going to fall away, and My husband has been very supportive. Like Benita has said, you need to have a very good support structure. And the only amount that I needed to put in was 450 rands at that time, which comes with all your manuals. It's an international business, and no one is going to give you a business for 450 rands. And out of that 450 rands, there's much more that I got out of it. It's also personal development for yourself that you really get out of that.
Expand on that. Talk to me a bit more about that personal development.
Personal development in terms of the courses that we attend. There's leadership development weekends that we go on. There's one coming up in June. And we also discuss how one can get into the business when we at those meetings. And there's a lot of people out there that are not working, that are embarking on this journey of Herbalife, and we're helping the communities grow as well.
I'm sure that there are other products, there are other initiatives that require a similar investment, where there's a bit of a financial outlay, there's a requirement for you to apply your mind to study, and a sacrifice, giving up your weekends, as you have said. Now, I suppose, Benita, for people who want to make extra income, they've got to understand that there's a lot of give, there's more give than take, isn't there?
There's more give than take, and there's also a time element, and you said it so well. You know, you have to work on the weekends, after hours. You've already got, if you're lucky enough to have a full-time job in these days, and now you want to supplement your income, you are going to have to do it after hours. And that commitment can be financial as well in terms of courses and training, but also it's a time commitment, and that is huge, and that will impact on your family and on your loved ones. So you mentioned earlier, it's not just about the passion, because I think most working moms will say the priority will always be the children. No matter how fantastic the job, no matter how fantastic the other job, the extra income is going to bring you, if something is happening in your children's life, that will be your priority and everything will stop. And so that is where the juggling comes in, and that is where asking for help comes in. So definitely it's an investment, but it's also an understanding that your priorities are clear in your head, and no matter what happens in that working space or what crisis might happen in your working world, you know what your priorities are. Yeah. And then I think it makes it a lot easier to juggle, because you know exactly where your head is at.
Now, what I'm really laying out the cautionary tale here, that if you want to make extra money, you can't just leap into this. You've got to consider a whole lot of factors. But I also, at the same time, don't want people to go, well, it's more difficult than I thought, I can't do this. I want to encourage people to embrace these notions. Now, for example, I'm a good example, I think, of somebody who gave up a pretty solid career in radio journalism, which I'd been doing for 30 years, and decided, let me go and try other things. But you made the very good point, Benita, what are you passionate about? And I was able to say, okay, what am I passionate about? I'm no longer passionate about doing radio, but what am I passionate about? My passions lie in other areas, and one of the things was actually to sell my skills, to teach people how to do the work that I do. And I found it, but also the thing was that to understand, is there a market for this? Will people want to use me? Once I'd established that was the case, then I could actually say, now I expand my horizons and do a bunch of things.
Well, I think the beautiful thing about getting older, for women it can be an issue, but for those people, the beautiful thing about getting older is that you've got experience. So when someone like David O'Sullivan says, what am I going to do after I try something brand new, you can bring to the table something that nobody else other than David O'Sullivan can bring. I don't want to embarrass you, but if you look at a legal expert, a sporting expert, a news expert, and any of these spheres you could go into, and it's up to you to decide, well, which is the one I enjoy the most? Which is the one that when I go home at night to my family, I'm feeling excited and motivated? And obviously, incorporating all those skills will be some of the most joy. You know, you might find something completely new. Throw in a book here, throw in a TV show, throw in anchoring, throw in what you're doing right now.
That's
and
right.
You are incorporating all the skills that you've got, plus experience. And I cannot stress the value of experience. I think that is just something that everybody needs, and everybody, especially in this climate, everyone's looking for answers, and this is where it actually comes in. So for once, it really is great to be getting older.
Well, I suppose that's the other issue to throw in. If you don't have experience and you want to go throw yourself into a new market, a lack of experience may be the difference between succeeding and failing. The other thing is, for me, is that there is so much emphasis on having a full-time job. So if you want to make more money, a lot of people think, well, I need to go into another better paying full-time job, without understanding, as you have done, that you can have 2 careers. And I said, was that a mold that you had to break in your mind, that you can actually have this job and have another job? So it's what we're calling these days a portfolio of careers.
I've been working for the company that I'm working for 9 years now, and for me they've become like family. Then I thought, you know what, I cannot leave my job because of a salary, so let me rather look for something, rather get into something that can supplement. So yes. It's always nice to have a full-time job, yes, but you can always supplement it. So that's what I had to channel my mind into, that yes, after hours I'm gonna be putting in some extra hours.
Yes.
Weekends are going to fall away. My child has to see me less. My family has to see me less. But yeah, you gotta do those sacrifices.
But for me, one of the hardest things to get my head around was the fact that I didn't have to now go to the office at a certain time and work a shift that ended at later in the day, a 5-hour, 6-hour shift. Radio, you don't have to work long hours, unless there's a big breaking news story, so especially if you're a radio presenter. But for me, after 30 years, I was used to the fact that I knew what my starting time was and what my finishing time was, and that there'd be a salary at the end of the day. Now suddenly, I was waking up in the morning, and possibly that day, I didn't have anything on. And the next day, I had 5 things that I had to do. But to get my head around the fact that my entire working ethic had changed, I found very difficult. So I would feel terribly guilty on days when I wasn't working. I needed to be busy all the time. Now I'm used to it. Now when I look and I go, oh, I've got to work. But it is, you've got to break the mold.
And also think about what you were doing in your spare time. The things that you were doing on those days when you didn't have any work. That's probably very special time with family, with friends, connecting, networking. You can't stop talking about the value of networking in any of the roles that we have, and how important that is just for your own sanity, because the rate and pace at which people in news are working is also not normal. And so just to have to deflate and suddenly slow down a little bit and have 1 or 2 days or a couple of mornings where you actually have quiet time is actually probably fabulous for your own health and your mental well-being.
Well, that's exactly the case, because one of the things I was able to do was read all the materials that I wished I had been able to read, but never had the time for. And then you find that information gathering is working in the other facets of things that I'm doing. For example, I've always been fascinated by TED Talks, and I found a book, How to Be a Good TED Talk. Not that I want to do TED Talks, but just this whole notion of storytelling. How do people, because one of the things I like to do is sit with CEOs of companies and chief information officers and CFOs who've got to do presentations, and they are the dullest things. So I think, but there's a way to turn this around through storytelling. But I didn't have the skills to do this. Now I'm just, in my spare time, reading this wonderful book about how you get storytelling to be effective in TED Talks, and I find that stuff is the stuff I can use elsewhere. So what I'm doing in my spare time translates into what I can do in my, well, I can't call it full-time, in the portfolio of careers. So you're absolutely right. One lends itself to the other.
And without even realizing it, you are doing groundwork for future projects. There's no doubt about it. I promise you we are going to see a TED Talk with David O'Sullivan in the not too distant future.
Yeah, what if I can get a topic going? I might well be the case. But it's what I think it's an interesting concept now that people are getting, and you've got it now, this portfolio of careers, where you don't need, or portfolio of jobs, you don't need to have one thing, and that is the only thing you do. You can look at a range of things. Can I do 5 different things? You itemize them and say, how good am I at this? Do I have the passion for it? Do I have the skill set? Do I have the time to invest in the knowledge to do this thing properly? If the answer is yes, do that. But don't say that's the only thing. Then look at what else can you do? And can you manage 5 different things? And at the moment, I am managing 5 or 6 different projects that I do. And that's the way I supplement my income. But of course, it was a bit of a bold step, because I had to break that mold in my head that I always believed I do one thing only. My father worked for the same company for 40, 50 years. That's all he did, and that was the kind of work ethic that I had. I think those days are over now.
Long gone. I think about 2 decades ago in the world of news, somebody entered a newsroom, and after 5 years they got a pen, and after 10 years they got a long service award, and eventually they became a manager, and it was just the way things developed if you stuck around for long enough. If you speak to young people, the CVs that we are getting at the moment, they have no intention of staying in any company longer than 18 months because they want to get all the skills that they can from one place and move on to the next. It's a fascinating mindset change. It's fascinating as employers to think, well, hold on, how are we going to invest in people and grow them? But it's also interesting because that concept of waiting around for the pen and the awards, et cetera, is long gone. Sticking around in one job is not what people are striving for, certainly not young people anymore.
That's right. I mean, that would be my advice to people who have been in work environments for 20, 30 years and now saying, well, I need to do something, I need to get out. I know that they're going to be hampered by their own restrictions because that's the way it's always been done. And I'm glad that you've raised this. The millennials are saying, that's not the case anymore. 18 months is long enough. Then we go to the next thing. We look for the next thing. And that's what people must start understanding. If you want to try and supplement your income by doing other things, you can look for a range of things. It's the way things are done. You don't go into another full-time job that pays more. But now I suppose people are saying, well, I don't know what my skill set are. There are any number of websites that give ideas on what you can do. And I think with the opening up of the internet, you do get ideas of what it is you could possibly do, even without a big skill set. If you own a car, for example, there's
Uber
something.
driver.
Yeah, is Uber an option for you, or Lyft, or any of the other services that offers transport? Can you actually do something like that? Now everybody can. Well, if you own a car, you can drive. But then what you would want to do is just go and investigate what the initiative requires. Do I qualify? And do I have the time? Also importantly, do I have the support? Because you might want to be an Uber driver at peak hours, early morning and late afternoon. Who's looking after the children? Who's doing the school run? But that's the kind of thing we're talking about, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I think also I spoke actually recently to someone who was an Uber driver in their spare time, and they described how, talk about technology, they go online when they're available, and when you're not available for lifts, you simply aren't on the app anymore, and it's that simple. So it's just a perfect example. I know it's controversial in the news right now, Uber and taxi drivers, etc.,
Yes.
what's going on, but it's a perfect example, as you say, of someone, you've got a driver's license, you can drive with permission, and obviously going through the training and whatever regulations are going to come into place, you can drive in your free time and make extra cash. You mentioned au pairing. There are au pairs of a whole range of ages. If you were good at English, extra lessons for classes in the afternoons. Beautiful example of someone, you can fetch someone from school, you can give them the extra lessons, and that's extra cash, which isn't taking up your whole day. So there are a lot of small steps, just baby steps on getting out there and starting something and then just seeing how it's going to grow.
I know a woman who was asked the question that you raised. She had a full-time job and was asked, what is your passion? She said, I've always wanted to be a teacher, but teaching never paid her enough, whereas her corporate job paid her enough money. Now, not for any reason to gain extra revenue, but to satisfy this yearning, she's now started doing the au pairing, which she gets this enormous satisfaction out of because she's able to structure her corporate job that in the late afternoon she can go and become an au pair and do the teaching. But of course it required the support from her husband, and it also required her to go and research what is it I can do without being irresponsible. She can't go and say, well, I'll go and do extra maths lessons when actually you need a skill set for that. But just assisting children with discipline and putting structure into their lives, that was enough to satisfy the yearning. She didn't even realize that that was such an easy option. But it required a lot of foresight and understanding what she could do. And I suppose that's something you've done as well, isn't it, Makgotso?
Yes, I have been doing a lot of things. I'm passionate about modeling. So most of my friends make clothes, they sell clothes. So I always say, let me model them for you. So they'll send me clothes, I wear their clothes, and I just send it on Instagram. Then they get a lot of followers, people buy from them, and that's how they make their sales. So it's not just about looking into one thing and I want to do this thing. If you ever dreamed of being a model, get these people to send you their clothes, model for them, make some extra cash.
And the thing is, these days, you don't have to then find a fashion outlet, fashion shows. Instagram there's the option. That's the thing, though, is to go and explore it, to make sure you've got the followers. If you've got 3 followers on Instagram, it's going to be a little tricky. But there are then ways to gain a following and to understand how to use social media. And if people don't understand, well, where am I going to find it? Can I just say there's an instrument on the website called, or on the internet called Google, or any of the search engines, and you can just type in the question that you want answered. How do I increase my followers on Instagram? And there'll be a range of things, advices that you could that you'll get from people. I've made a list here of some of the suggestions, because if you go onto Google and say, how can I earn extra income, you get all sorts of options. Now, some of the South African websites have very good suggestions, and some of the international ones have terrible suggestions. So I'm going to warn people to be very careful. One of them was, and here's one that I'm saying don't do. They said, if you like tinkering on the internet, what about software development? Okay, no.
Wow.
Tinkering on the web, on the internet, surfing, and writing software programs are 2 very different things. But if you can write in code, and you could write code, I should say, then it is an option for you. Can you, in your spare time, can you do software development? Because that is a burgeoning field. But we've done rent out your car, and there's a website called Rent My Ride. Go and explore something like that. But of course, you've got to first check, have I got the right insurance? Is my car reliable? You can't just go into these kinds of things. There might be rules and regulations, and as you say, Benita, we've got the taxi industry at odds with Uber at the moment about what can and cannot be done. So you need to explore all of those things. And another interesting one I saw was rent out your space on Airbnb. I don't know if any of you have got friends who've done Airbnb.
Yes, we actually were on the site the other day looking at various accommodation the world over. I mean, it's just made the world such a tiny place. And absolutely, that's a beautiful way to make an income, and you can rent out either a room or your entire home. So when you go on holiday with friends, you can stay at people because times are tough. You can rent out your home, and then you'll be making cash in that time. So I think that's going to be hugely popular in the future.
Because Airbnb used to be, well, initially it was this American idea where you go and suddenly it's just overtaken the world. I don't know to what extent we're still in the mindset that here at the bottom end of Africa, we lag behind the trends. But I think more and more we're keeping up with the trends, certainly when it comes to technology. And Airbnb is now something quite popular here. It's just a case of going onto Airbnb, looking at what's comparative in your area. So if you live in Johannesburg, what are Joburg people doing? What are their places looking like? How much are they charging? Can you do better? Can you emulate? Can you equal it? And if you can, why not?
It's always about the extra value. What are you adding that other people aren't offering?
That's right. And finding that gap. But it requires the research, it requires the foresight, and then it requires, as you said, the partners, your partnership, your support structures. If you are going to do this, is there somebody to assist you with the managing of what you're renting out? You can't, if you've got a garden cottage and you're renting it out, who's cleaning the cottage? Who's ensuring that the guests are comfortable? That kind of thing as well. Another thing, it says sell trendy products for profit. Well, trendy products, well, how about selling good products for profit? And that's something you know about.
Yes, I mean, Herbalife is for nutrition, and it's not just about you want to lose the weight, or, you know, there's people with high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity is very big in our country. So everybody wants to look good, everybody wants to be healthy, they want to live longer. So that's what we're giving them.
Yes.
Yes, and I mean, there's a lot of things that you get from Herbalife as well. It's not just about you working for profit. There's trips that you can qualify for. I'll be going to Greece next week, all expenses paid for. I'll be staying in a 5-star resort. All expenses paid for by Herbalife, by what I have been doing over the years.
Oh, this whole incentive scheme there. I didn't realize. That's fabulous.
Yes, yeah, it's great. I'm taking my husband with me, and we're going to be there for free.
Has he lost the weight?
He has lost the weight. He's looking the part. He can show his six-pack now.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
You and I got a different conversation a bit later. There was another suggestion I found quite interesting. It's sell stuff you don't use or have collected. Now, I don't think I've ever bothered to go and look at what's lying around in the cupboards and whether it's got value for somebody else. It hasn't got value for me anymore. I've forgotten it's even there. Putting it on eBay. There are so many places.
So many sites.
So many sites to go and sell. And if you don't know what the sites are, you type into Google, where can I sell my stuff online? And
it will
bingo,
tell you.
it'll come out. Have you ever tried that?
Well, I just wanted to talk about, you said selling trendy things from home.
Yeah.
Just reminded me of a story of a woman who said whenever she relaxed at home and was watching TV, she mind-numbingly used to play and make little jewelry pieces and bracelets and necklaces, etc. And people started commenting on them, and over time it developed into her own jewelry line. She now goes overseas to get extra equipment and items to bring back, and she has her own local jewelry line. And she says it started from playing around and doing her own little bracelets and little pretty things that she was making at home. So I think there is something about the creative mind and looking quite acutely at what you are doing and what people are commenting on, and actually saying, well, hold on, could we turn that into some kind of a business?
Yes.
I'm not saying everybody's little hobbies are going to turn into successful businesses, but it's just a different way of looking at things.
But it's worth exploring.
Exactly.
I think what we said beforehand is that if you've got the idea, don't then say, right, I'll give up my full-time job, that's what I'm going to do. Explore, will this actually work? Is it something that's going to be sustainable? And is it something that's going to generate the income? Is it something I'm passionate about? Have I got the support structures to ensure that I can do these things? But you're right. I mean, it's these small things that you didn't otherwise think might work for you and actually turn into a cottage industry.
Obvious.
Yeah, it might be staring at you in front of your nose. It says one of the other things that I found was charge a fee to give people lifts. Now, again, it's using your vehicle. And I would warn, check the insurance first. Definitely. Are you able, in terms of your insurance, are you able to do this? In terms of regulations, are you going to be infringing on the rules that govern taxis, for example? But if it's a case of going to pick up children from school, where working parents can't, they need that assistance, it could be an issue. It could be an option for you. But you've got to make sure that you can be reliable. Now, you mentioned the Instagram and modeling. One of the ideas was sell your photos. And I remember reading an article about, in fact, I saw it on one of the TV channels, a couple, South African couple, who started a blog, and they did a bit of traveling and found that there was an interest in the way they wrote about their travels. And the next thing, Instagram said, well, can we feature you? And now they're making money out of it. They can't believe it. I can't believe it. Yeah. But it's a reality. It's an absolute
I saw
reality.
that show, absolutely. And it was such a beautiful example of their passion. They wanted to take a break from their work lives and go out into the travel world and explore. And now it's turned into a very successful business for them.
Yeah.
Good to them.
The thing is, I'm going to caution and say, if you've got a passion for traveling, it's a good start. If you've got the means to go and start the traveling, it's a good start. If you've got the skills in taking photographs and you can write, yes. But if you're somebody, well, I've never thought about this, so I'm going to do it. It worked for them, it'll work for me. Then I'm going to say, just be careful on this. But I love the idea of the thing that you're doing with the modeling. I'm sure there are many women who go, well, I've wanted to model, I can do this. Let me explore that as an option.
It's very interesting what Benita was saying, that your hobbies, what you like doing, what you're passionate about. One of the things I do is I love cooking healthy meals, and I'll sort of put them nicely on my plate, and people will start asking me, what did you put in there? And it's just simple things, and it's just the way you present your food, and people now want to know, what did you put in there? Where can I get that? So they get motivated. So yes. You sort of like, okay, fine, maybe I should cook lunch for a few girls. Then they can come and have a meeting with me.
That's right.
So it's very interesting. So there's a lot of things that you can do through social media.
Social media is it's extraordinary, the doors that it opens. It's not about taking a photograph of your cat and putting it online. There's so much more. And again, if you want to know, well, I don't know how to use social media, Google it. Google it. You'll find loads and loads of examples from people who've used social media and used it effectively. What I find interesting is that the big corporates still battle to get their heads around it, where it's the small entrepreneurs who have understood it.
A beautiful example of that, and I think that technology can be so intimidating, especially for older people. But a little coffee shop close by to where we stay, they've started WhatsApping clients, and you can send a WhatsApp and say, for a drive-through concept, I'll be there in 10 minutes, can I have my latte? And somebody will come out and bring it to you. This is a one-man business who has looked and said, what value can I bring that your internationals who are coming in to make coffee for us aren't going to give that personalized service, and just using WhatsApp, which is costing them nothing, you are able to say, please can I have my coffee ready in 10 minutes? And when you get there, you don't have to park, you don't have to waste time, you're just on your way. So sometimes, you're right, it's the smaller businesses that are looking at the innovations and saying, how can we do things slightly differently? And it's making a difference for their business.
Yeah, and I suppose for anybody who's got an SME, a small, medium enterprise, and is looking for other ways of boosting the revenue, have you explored social media properly? Are you using it more effectively? Just looking at my list in the time that we've got left here, one of the things as well, because of the prevalence of the internet and entrepreneurs starting up, often what is lacking in their lives is some kind of order, and they would need a PA. Now, who's got the initiative to go and hire a PA or the expense of hiring a PA? What about offering your services as a PA? And I can think of so many retired people who've had these skills in the past, but don't want to now go into an office and be held down by the drudgery of a 9-to-5 job, when you can actually do it from home. So you can manage different people's diaries for them and be a personal assistant, because you can do this stuff online these days. It all can be done remotely, can't it?
And be your own boss and have your own free time to go and spend with your family or your friends when you see fit, which is the way things are going. People want to have that balance where they get in their family and personal time as well.
I do want to caution, there were a few then that I got from some of the websites where I felt it's not good advice. And so I'm going to tell people just to be wary. It said, teach English online. But if you don't have the skills to teach, you're actually doing yourself and the people you're trying to teach a great disservice. If you want to teach English online, I would suggest you go and do some kind of a course and understand teaching. I mean, I've got an au pair for my son, because he's now got to the stage of his schooling where I don't know how to teach him these things anymore. So I bring in an au pair who's a qualified teacher, is studying for higher diplomas, and so she's got the free time. And then I watch the way she teaches, and I realize I don't have those skills. I don't know that that's the way you do these things. I don't know those methodologies. So I can't just go, well, you know, I can speak English, I'm going to go and teach English. It doesn't actually work like that. There was an idea here, freelance. Go freelance. Well, yes, if you've got the skills to be a freelancer, and I consider myself, if somebody says, what do you do? Well, I mean, how much time have you got? I do so many things, but in a nutshell, I'm a media freelancer. I can do different things. But it's what you said, it's because I've got the experience. If you don't have the experience, then you go, oh, I think I'm going to become a writer.
Well, exactly, and the whole point is that the work world right now is so competitive that you absolutely can only get involved in an area where you are at least becoming an expert, at least training to be an expert, and to set yourself up against experienced people who've been doing this for years and know exactly what you said when you're watching a woman doing homework with your son, knows the nuances and how to talk to somebody and maybe skills that other people don't have, then you know that you're adding extra value. So what you're saying is any decision that you make, any risk that you want to take, it's got to be a rational and well thought through decision. You're not going to jump in blind. Exactly.
Well, let's just summarize some of the things that we have said here. I do want to leave people with the idea that you can be bold, and that I want to encourage people to break the mold. Can I use the expression, think outside the box, without being pilloried here? But it is the case. You've got to now expand your horizon, say, you know, I can do this. I remember talking to Rita Landman as she left Carte Blanche. Years later, when I spoke to her about her experience when she left Carte Blanche, what was life like for her, making this very bold decision, because she was this well-known person on this highly rated TV show, and she decided to expand her horizons, do something else. And she said something to me which at the time I thought was possibly a trite expression. And when I did it myself, I realized it was absolutely true. She said, when you step out into the void, the bridge comes up to meet your feet. And I thought, maybe that's something you find on a tea towel. And then I realized that's what you've got to do. You've got to step into the void. But you've got to know that there's the likelihood of the bridge coming up to go and meet your feet. And the trick is knowing if that's going to happen. And also that there may be setbacks along the way, there may be disappointments, but a beautiful situation is you've got 5 different portfolios that you're talking about, so a setback in one is not the end of the world, and a setback might be an opening for something else just waiting around the corner. And with that positive thinking, your world is your oyster out there. There will be hard knocks, there's no doubt about it. People will promise things that don't come to fruition. But as you say, it then steers you in the direction that you want to go. And it's amazing how that does actually happen. But you need, and I think if we can just summarize it, you need that support structure. If you don't have the family support or people around you to assist you, you can't do it. You wouldn't have been able to do it without your husband saying, go and do it. Or your full-time job, the people there saying, give it a go.
Yes, I wouldn't have been. Most of my business is done on my phone, so I get a lot of WhatsApp. So on weekends, my husband drives me around when I'm busy WhatsApping my clients. So yeah, the support is really great.
So we've got that. The support is needed. Then there's the passion. You need to be passionate about this. You can't just go in willy-nilly and think, I'll give it a go. You've got to have the fire in your belly, haven't you, Benita?
Absolutely. A half-hearted attempt at anything in this climate right now, it isn't going to work. You've got to find that skill set and that passion, and then think very hard. Ask honest questions of yourself and ask questions of the people closest to you, because they will be brutally honest about what really, really drives you and about what your skills are that are different from other people's. And then you've got to go out there and take that risk and make it happen.
And then it's investing some intellectual capital in this. You went and studied, there was a financial imperative right up front, but you've got to go and research what it is you're going to do and understand that there's an intellectual investment. It's not going to be an easy ride. You've got to think hard about it. You've got to work hard. You've got to make sacrifices. And if you're not prepared to do any of those, it's not going to happen for you. And then I think the last one is what we're making, be bold. Break
be
them all.
brave.
Yeah, get out there. And I know you've been stuck in your 9-to-5 job. Go and explore the bigger world out there. And find yourself a variety of things to do. You don't have to choose one thing to replace the one thing you did. Find 5 things to replace the one thing you did. Juggle your time. Could work out. I hope we've solved many problems.
Wonderful.
To both of you, thank you very much for being with us today. And I think you've shared some great insights for us. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, David.
And that ends our Iris Exchange on the Change, our Iris session on the Change Exchange. I hope you found this invaluable. I hope you've learned some lessons. And I hope you will now go out and explore that big bad world out there that actually isn't that, well, it's big, but it's not necessarily bad. From me, David O'Sullivan, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time on the Change Exchange.